So I'm Gill Fielding, and this is what's caught my eye in the media this week. Well, amongst all the negative, miserable news, there is some lovely news about first-time buyers. And apparently during 2021, 408,379 people bought their first home, and that's the highest number since 2002, so for 20 years. Now, that's a remarkable statistic, bearing in mind we've been in lockdown and during a pandemic, and it just goes to show what can be done if you want to. Now, apparently these first-time buyers have been assisted by the fact that interest rates are at their lowest, and so borrowing has been cheap, ably abetted and helped by the fact that they've saved up lots of money during lockdown, so they've got healthier and bigger deposits. And so the situation has conspired to help them in this circumstance. But it's important to me for people to understand that even though there's doom and destruction going on outside, if you take control of your finances, you can do something about your own personal circumstances and situation. So I always say to people, take responsibility for your money. Don't take too much notice of the national economy, the bigger economy, and concentrate much more on your private, smaller economy and the money in your purse and your bank account. And it just goes to show that 408,379 people have done just that, bought a home for the first time ever by concentrating on them and their money and what they want to do, and not taking a great deal of notice of what's going on in the larger economy outside. So good luck to them, and what a fabulous piece of news. Now, the next thing, I've read a report about the Bank of England doing some printing. Now, we're used to the Bank of England printing money, and they've just finished their quantitative easing programme that finished at the end of 2021, where they printed £895 billion worth of money to pump into the UK economy broadly through investing in government bonds and hoping to keep debt prices down. But what they're printing now is a book. And it's called a pop economic book, and it's called Can't We Just Print More Money? And apparently it's addressing, in perhaps a more light-hearted vein, some of the bigger economic issues like quantitative easing, inflation and debt. And this book will be out in May, so I've pre-ordered my copy so that I can have a look at it, because at last the Bank of England are printing something that I want to read. And I hope that a lot of people want to read, and I think it's going to be a positive read, addressing some of the bigger issues in perhaps layman's terms, in simpler terms, and perhaps a more light-hearted fashion, so that it's more readable for the masses as a whole. And this is the sort of book we need to be getting into schools and to everybody that wants to know a little bit about the how the economy works, because it's easy to understand once you get to grips with the fundamentals and the principles. We just don't teach them to kids at school, but maybe this is a first step, and maybe this book will be in all school curriculums before long. So it's called Can't We Just Print More Money? A pop economic book from the Bank of England, coming out in May. Pre-order your copy and get yourself some useful, valuable knowledge and information along the way. So well done, the Bank of England. Now, the stock markets finished 2021 on an all-time high, and the FTSE 100 ended the year 14.3% up on the year, and the Dow in the USA finished 18.7 at the end, higher at the end of 2021 than it did at the beginning, and that's the biggest rise since their records began in 1896. This is absolutely staggering information, and just goes to show how some parts of the economy have kept going throughout COVID and throughout the pandemic. And traditionally, we have a peak at the end of each calendar year. That's a fairly normal trend within the stock markets, but this is bigger than normal. And that's because the stock markets now believe that the end of the pandemic is in sight. And what the market has done is built in that optimism and that sentiment, and that has resulted in increased share prices. And of course, it's a bit like a chicken and an egg, because the sentiment goes up, so the investors buy more, so the prices go up, so they feel happier and the sentiment is higher. So it's kind of an upward spiral, and a bit like a chicken and egg, as I say. But I'm absolutely delighted to see it. I hope they're right, and I hope their optimism that the end of the pandemic is in sight holds true. They're normally a good predictor of how the human race works, the stock market. So let's look forward to that, and well done them, and fantastic for any investors that were invested in the stock market during 2021, because I suspect you've done pretty well. Now, finally, I just want to cogitate on the thought of how big is an apple? Because this week we've had the amazing news that the Apple company has reached the staggering figure of $3 trillion in value. And that's $1 billion to the likes of you and I. And that's an extraordinary amount of money. No company has ever been worth that much before. And of course, they started their stock market listing in 1980. It took them 9,491 days to reach the first trillion. It took them 516 days to go from trillion number 1 to trillion number 2, and only 345 days to go from trillion number 2 to trillion number 3. So I shall watch those figures with interest and see how quickly they achieve trillion 4, if they ever do get there. Now, although these figures are just funny money to normal human beings, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a business owner, and I look at Apple and see what I could learn. And of course, what they've done is they've followed what I call a basic core and explore strategy. And that is they have a core product, which is the iPhone, and they gradually explore out from that into other very connected markets, into the iPad, the iCloud, that kind of stuff. And apparently now they're looking at reality glasses, I think. So they've taken their core product, which is the iPhone, which is great, but they haven't stopped there. They've explored a little bit beyond that into connected but slightly different marketplaces to increase their business value and their business size. And that's something all entrepreneurs can do. You can start with your core product, whatever it might be, let's say a plumbing business, and you can explore out from that and go into slightly different markets using the same skill set and the same fundamental principles. Core and explore. We can do it. Apple has certainly done it. And whether your business is worth $3,000 or $3 trillion, the principles are still the same. Core and explore. Have a go. I wish you health, wealth and happiness. Keep safe, and I'll speak to you next week.